You've tuned into Tomcat Tales, the story of Ashland's legends from the gridiron, the court, the diamond, and beyond. It's a deep dive into Ashland Tomcat sports history. Now, here's your host, Mark Maynard.
Everybody to Tomcat Tales. We have a special guest with us today from 30 years ago. The Ashland Tomcats won a state championship, and this guy was one of the 3,000-yard rushers on that team. And it is Chris Hutt, and Chris joins us from Louisville today. Chris, how you doing today?
Glad to have me.
Yeah, it's good to have you on here. And can you believe it's been 30 years since that state championship season?
No, Stuart Hackworth, we were talking about it about 3 days ago.
Oh, is that right? It's
yeah.
I mean, I don't know where time goes. I'll tell you, it just slips away from us for sure. But
right.
I was thinking about even this week would have been probably the 30th anniversary of that semifinal game against Bell County, and that's probably one of Ashland's greatest wins in Putnam Stadium.
Yeah, I remember that well that night. That and the Belfry, and that was, to us, that was great. And then the Ironton game as well.
Oh yeah.
But the Bell County game was unbelievable.
Yeah. What do you remember about that night?
Well, I don't remember, and bear with me, but in that the game we were down two touchdowns at half.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that.
You were behind late, I remember, a score. They were ahead because the final was 19-14.
Okay.
And I think you're thinking about the next year against Hamilton Holmes. You guys were down.
I think so.
And came back one. But this game, it was not. Of course, it was 19-14, and of course, I remember a couple of things about it. One, it being pretty cold.
Yep.
Pretty cold night, and I remember Bell County could just hit you. I mean, they were a really good team, and I can remember that game because I think I walked the sidelines that night, and just man, you could just feel it. You guys getting both sides. Both sides were hitting.
Yeah, that was probably one of the hardest hitting games we'd been in all year. Probably to date, really.
Yeah.
I do remember the coaches, after the most of them games, that there was a couple games where we got behind, and I remember Coach Marsh telling a story to us, and I guess we were in a locker room, or it might have been for his when he got his accolade there at the Elks. And he was telling us a story how he was freaking out because we weren't playing real well. Nothing was clicking. We looked kind of just off. And I think it was either Coach Arthur or Coach Evans come walking over, and the coaches were all together, and Coach Marsh had it holding his head, and he's like, guys, I don't know what to do. How we get these guys going. And the coach looked at him and said, well, look out on the field. And they look out at us, and we're all just like nothing happens. Like, we weren't down by no touchdown or nothing. We were just playing like a regular day. And he said, well, why are we going to get frustrated if they're not frustrated? Let's just let it keep going and see what they do.
Yeah, it wasn't a real emotional team, was it? I mean, it really wasn't. I mean,
no, it wasn't. You look now when people. Yeah, when people, they score and everybody comes around and jumps and hollers and does the belly bump and everything and the shoulder bumps. We didn't do none of that. We tapped you on the helmet and, okay, let's go to the next play.
Yeah. You look back at that playoff, the whole thing though. You were behind against Clay County. And of course that was the game with the fight and or near fight anyway.
Right.
But you were behind in that game. I think Juan broke a real long one to put you guys ahead. I think like 18-15, which you end up winning 27-15. But Juan had three in that game, and three big scores. And then Belfry, you go behind at halftime. That's that might have been the game you're thinking about too. Belfry, you guys.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, you're behind a couple of
Because I
touchdowns
remember,
at least.
yeah, because I remember getting tackled on that field. Everybody would hit the dirt, and it was like coal and glass all over the field. You know, every time you got up, you were cut.
Yeah, that was at Belfry's, I think Vickerman Stadium they call it, and it was a rough place to play. I mean, and Belfry didn't lose too many games there. Of course, Belfry had beat you guys the year before at Putnam even, you know, and that was a good Ashland team. And, you know, I know I talked to Vic on one of these podcasts, and he said, you know, one thing he thought really kind of set you guys back emotionally, you know, was Jimmy Benteen's father had passed that week.
Right.
I think the funeral maybe was that day, and you all went to the funeral.
It was that day, yeah.
So that kind of, that's tough, you know. That's tough to play through that for sure. But Belfry,
yeah,
you know, they handled you guys pretty well though. Your sophomore year, I guess, you know. Right.
Yeah, I think my sophomore year, the only time I saw the field was Boyd County.
I looked back. You had about almost 300 yards rushing, so you played a little bit more than that. Maybe.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you had a pretty good season. I mean, for a sophomore especially. But that, you know, I think you all came back and beat Belfry, of course, 35-20. You know, everything got turned around at that point. And then, you know, Bell County was next. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sure Vic didn't say anything to you guys at that time, but, you know, those guys, the coaches felt like that was the state championship. You know, whoever was going to win that game was probably going to win the next week. It's just a matter of can you win that game? Right.
Yeah, I think, I hate to say it, but I think that, you know, the loss, the Belfry game and the loss on Greenup, I think those two games were the, you know, those were the turnaround games for that year. But, you know, I've coached quite a bit, you know, youth kids. I'd love to have time to coach the high school level, but I never can once remember of a time where any game that we ever played together that we were in the huddle complaining, you know, down, what we're going to do, what was me? Never. You know, it's funny you mentioned that because Stuart and I, we go on fishing trips together and golfing trips, and we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, this team had a mentality for sure. I mean, and I think it was also a mentality is you cannot keep us from getting the first down. You know, our running backs are too good. Our line is too good. We're gonna get 10 yards in 4 plays. You know, and I think you all punted like 9 times or 10 times like the entire season. You know.
You can ask Dave Daniels that.
Was he the punter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't get too much use for sure. And even if it was, I can remember you all going for it if it was 4th and 5 even. You know, 4th and 6. It's like, yeah, we can get that. You know, I know you didn't get it every time, but I think the mentality was you can't stop us. And when you look back at that season, and I think it was 5,285 yards rushing. You know, nobody does that. You know, I mean, that's just like unheard of, really.
Well, you know, growing up with my kids, you know, I've always told them, you know, even kids that I've coached other than my kids, you know, one of my things was, you know, when you're a running back or you're a quarterback or anything that you have to run through the line, you know, when we played, it never crossed your mind, well, you know, are they blitzing? Are they coming through? Are people going to hold their blocks? You never thought that. You know, you knew what guys were standing up there, and you trusted it. It was like it was a wall, and you were behind it, and you could sit there and eat lunch if you wanted. I mean, it was never an issue, I thought.
Yeah. It never, you know, kind of never an issue of failure, really. You know, when you look at your all 3 years, your 3 years. I mean, y'all won 9, 14, and 9. You know, in those 3 years, just you know, you didn't lose very often. And I guess, like you're saying, well, let me go back to the Bell County game a little bit. You know, that game, of course, you know, you rock 'em, sock 'em. I mean, you know, team, you're going after it, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. I think Juan finally scored the late touchdown that put you guys ahead, 19-14, and then the defense holds them, and you win that game. And then I think I did see some emotion after winning that game. Winning that game at home too was probably made it more so. Made it even more of a celebration. Can you remember that night after you all won that game?
Yeah, I remember all the fans coming down again. But when you play in Ashland Stadium, it's and I've told people here that you guys have not really. You have a fan base, but I mean not in Ashland. That's like a college fan base in a high school. It's just so the fans are so into it. They know. Even like when there's an offsides or something, the fans are so into it. They know what happened. Most people are like, oh, we got a penalty, no big deal. But the fans to come out after games like that year and be the support behind us, it was pretty impressive, to say the least.
Well, who'd you play for in JFL?
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey.
I was on the Jets.
I can. There's some names that go through there. And Steve Harvey certainly one of them. I mean, he developed a lot of good football players, through the years for sure. And you were obviously one of them, Greg Estep, right? That era of coaches when you guys were coming through, maybe the best JFL coaches that Ashland's ever had. No offense to the ones that are coaching now or whatever, or coached before.
Right.
But, a lot of talent that went through too. No doubt.
Right. No, I remember playing in the JFL. It was everybody hated to play the team that Charlie and Juan was on. They were like, "Oh my God, we got to play them this week."
They were monsters. They were always monsters. They're so big.
Yeah. I know my dad was standing by Greg Estep one day, and it was in JFL, I think, and he said, "Man," he said, how is your son so fast?" And my dad looked at him and says, "Fast? He ain't fast. He's scared. He's scared to death. He don't want nothing big guys hit me."
So that's how you got your speed, huh? Got to run away.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's good. How true? How true? Even though we talk about and you look back on the team, you're like 5,000 yards rushing and 3,000 yard rushers, which that kind of stuff doesn't happen. I don't know if going into that season, I mean, I think you all knew you were going to be pretty good, for sure. You're coming off a 9-win season, and that was really a junior-dominated team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they lost a few good seniors, but I mean, it was predominantly juniors that were playing the key roles, and one had moved into the backfield about halfway through the season, or fourth game or so, and kind of established that team a little bit, I think. But going into your senior, not your junior year, going into that season, what were the expectations that you all had?
Well, like I said, and that team to me is special. When you talk about expectations and goals, and we really didn't have any goals and expectations. Everybody knew it was the locker room, elephant on the wall, that you just do your job. If I'm a wide receiver and I have to run 5 and out, and my guy has to go with me, I'm running 5 and out. And we didn't question anybody. If you had an assignment to do, it didn't care what was going on through that game or through that play. You had to do your assignment, period. And, your assignment, I think the coaches, the Bill Blakes, the Evans and Arthur and Sayers and Marsh, they kind of taught it that way. Like, if you have a job and you do your job, all the other 10 jobs will come together. It's, you just have a little piece of the job. It was, it was great. I had a ball.
But not preseason, not saying, you know what, we're going to be state champs, or that's what we're going to try to do, or that's, or we're going to go undefeated, or, there was none of that, right? I mean, I thought, didn't have the expectation to win, but yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember we were we took a Tomcat after practice, or maybe it was before practice. Like I said, it was 30 years ago. And, we remember Vic saying, hey guys, it said, we're going to go after that state title this year. And we kind of all looked at each other like, what? Like, we're all looking around like, man, maybe we could do something like that. Maybe that's possible, because, we never looked and never talked about the wins and losses during that year. We just talked about having fun, but when he said that day, there was a little talk about, during practice, when you're in your groups or water break or whatever, about, man, boys, we could probably do this, and I think that's what really started it.
That was in preseason?
Yes.
Huh. Okay. So at least he was thinking, yeah, we're going to be pretty good, let's see what happens. I guess, looking back, I mean, the last time Ashland was really a factor, I guess, in the playoffs and stuff. Of course, the Jaws team in '75, that's 15 years. You guys were, you're young. You don't remember them,
No.
And then in '82 they got to the region finals or whatever, which was a pretty good feat. But even that, you're still pretty young at that point. What are your earliest memories of watching Ashland?
Mine would have been the Mike Johnson era.
Okay.
That would have been my memories of, because I'll be honest with you, everybody, they kind of made fun of me. They'd say a football player's name and it didn't matter who he played for, and I didn't know it. I never watched football ever. Didn't read the paper, didn't watch football. Walter Payton and Tony Dorsett, those were my, guys that I, collected their cards, and actually Steve Harvey got their autographs for me. Back in the JFL, but I mean, I didn't watch it. When we went home, we all hung out and we played wiffle ball and football, backyard football. I didn't really watch much TV.
Right.
Kind of weird, and everybody kind of thought it was odd.
Well, so I shouldn't. The '88 team obviously made it to the semifinals, almost beat Covenant Catholic, and you remember that team, I'm sure.
Yes.
As far as watching those games, and that was what a game that was. That the loss to Covenant Catholic. I mean, that was one of the all times that I saw at Sutton Stadium, even though it was a loss.
Covington Catholic. I didn't like to lose to them at all.
Yeah.
You knew you were going to have a game when you played them. You knew they were going to be good.
Oh yeah. In preseason, when I was talking to Vic, and I we've talked about this before with him, talking about the wishbone, and how really going into it, he wasn't really a wishbone coach. He was more of the two-back pro set,
right.
High formation maybe. That's more what he knew, and that's what he ran. Now, he knew the wishbone because you come up under Herb Conley, you're going to learn how to run the wishbone for sure.
Right.
But so, going into it, it was going to be you probably as the feature back, and, David Brown was going to be the quarterback. And, Juan was the receiver. I guess Juan would have been maybe the feature back, and you'd have been the other back. You two would have been the two backs.
Right.
Had he run that same pro set. Do you remember the changeover and how you guys felt about that?
Yeah, I just remember, when they brought Charlie back there, I was like, yeah, I'm not tackling that dude if he's full speed. I'm definitely going to cut his ankles out from him. And, he was like a tank. I was thinking when they made that, my eyes lit up and I was like, wow, says not only do I have that front line, but if I'm running low left, I get to run behind these two as well. I mean, they're not even going to see me. They're so big and I'm so little. I'm just going to tuck in their pocket and go. But we were all like, wow, we never even saw this coming. we could do some damage with this. Because I think
go ahead.
I think Coach Marsh being, the power out of the divide back guy, to me, the wishbone is identical to that. You just have two divide backs. You just have an extra guy. So one runs to one side, one runs to the other, but they're really the same plays. You're just getting there different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it put a little different pressure on David Brown to make the decisions. Because you're going to give it to the fullback, you're going to keep it, you're going to pitch it, you're going to keep it. And I don't know how many times I remember him that season going down the sideline, on a 20, 30-yard run, and then all of a sudden that ball goes out, and either you or Juan, catching it in mid-flight and getting another 20 or 30 after that,
right,
when it looked like they've got it. The defense thinks, okay, we finally got this guy down, and all of a sudden there it goes. He was pretty daring, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, and one thing is to go back through is I think that rolls around, the trust factor we had in each other. I think, he didn't really have to look to see if we were there. He knew we were going to be there, whether it was Juan or me. I don't care if he ran 80 yards, we're going to be right there with him in case, okay, he's smart enough. He can pitch that ball at any time. But, we always talk about how David Brown, we think he was a little bit underrated because, most people don't know, like you just said, how you have to make that decision, the precise handoff, fake handoffs, and pull it at the last minute. I mean, that, him on offense was unbelievable how he did it, and defense. He was a great defensive player too. Because, I told him when we went to the wishbone, I told him, I said, what my job is, and he said, what? And I said, my goal is to beat you. If you're going to meet me at the veer hole, I'm going to beat you there. So if you're not there, I'm going on through, just come behind me, but I'm trying to beat you there that fast. And I remember Vic and me and Juan and Brown, David working on that because that was my goal. And Vic wanted me to get there that fast. Yeah. And I think the timing, which was made, timing of that offense just was superb. It was I loved it. I've never seen it since then.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you kind of fall in love with the wishbone a little bit? I mean, just with how it operates.
How could I not?
Yeah. I know the success you guys had. I mean, it would have been hard not to. I mean, when you see Georgia Tech, I don't know if you still watch any still, but Georgia
I do
Tech,
now.
Yeah, or an Army, or some of these teams
that
actually run the wishbone, and it's different. It's a little different now. It's a little more. They call them broken bones and all that, where it's a little more wide open, than maybe it was with guys, But, I'm sure you really appreciate the wishbone more after that season, for sure.
Yeah, I did. Actually, when I started coaching youth, we ran it a few years.
Really?
It was hard running the option with youth kids because you really had to have a smart, intelligent. He didn't have to be necessarily an athlete, a full-blown athlete, but just a smart kid running the quarterback that could pitch the ball, and all the other coaches were like, you ain't going to run no option with a youth league. Well, of course now it was horrible because we had to play Louisville teams, which, we're pulling from 500, 600 boys, and they're pulling from multiple thousands. But we eventually ran it, we ran it for probably 3 years. And we were able to run, the option on some teams, so we enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. To run the wishbone, you got to have. First off, you got to have a great line. But you had that, and it wouldn't have mattered what offense you ran. You had a great line, for sure. Of course, Charlie got taken off that line, and of course he's going to be happy about that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get the ball a lot more, but I think you have to have a great fullback too, to really make that successful. And you really don't want to put Juan at fullback, because that will take away, some of the things that he could do, so well.
Plus, and Charlie's already been schooled how to block. You know, and a lot of running backs, you know, you're blocking a lot.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, we're just watching him run, though, because he wasn't slow. He wasn't like you, but he could move pretty good. And, I mean, he'd break through that first line, and then he'd be, like, looking for guys to just run over.
Well, he had to look because nobody was wanting to get in front of him.
Oh, I can remember defensive backs, like, you know, they're backing up on their, you know, they're running backwards. You know, they're right because they don't want any part of that. You know, so I think.
Well, I remember us breaking into individual groups. You know, of course, the running backs went with Coach Marsh, and you know that was when they went to the wishbone, and we're standing there, and we're like, well, "Where's Charlie?" You know, we look over, and he's over there with the lineman. You know, and of course Vic had to holler at him. He was like, "Oh, that's right. You know, I'm over here now."
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I know Vic said he knew when he kind of put the wishbone in and you all were running 3 sets, and he said it was him or Arthur one was like playing that end position, you know, kind of looking at it, and he said, you know, here comes Charlie and Juan and you running, and he's like, there is no high school team that can handle this. There's no high school player that can take that on, you know? And I think he's right, you know. I mean, he definitely was. And, of course, so, yeah, it was kind of – I remember we wanted to feature you guys on the tab cover, you know, which we did. Do you remember that? Do you remember what was on the cover? It was Juan, and it was several linemen, Hackworth, I think, and Charlie, he was actually in a lineman's jersey still, and I don't know, there's four or five guys, I can't remember who all they were.
Were they on like a bulldozer tank or something?
They were on a Mack truck. They were in front of a Mack truck, and Juan was in front of it with his arms crossed, and we put in there, featured on the cover, you know, the Independent Football Preview, or several Ashland Tomcats. One time, a Mack truck and a guy who runs like one, you know, because that was one, you know. I mean, because he got ahead of steam, and of course he's big and strong, and like you said, even in JFL he's always big and strong, you know.
Oh yeah.
But he was big and strong even as a high school senior too. You know, you just, that was a blend of speed and power that I don't think I don't know that we'll see that again, you know, out of an athlete. I mean, he's one of a kind for sure.
Correct. Yes, he was.
I mean, he was a beast. That season opener that year, you guys played Raceland, and Raceland was pretty good actually. But the final was 41-8, and I mean, I think people were stunned, you know, because I don't think everybody knew you were coming out in the wishbone and all that, and I remember talking to Bill Tom Ross after the game, and he's like, my gosh, I don't know, you know, who's going to stop these guys. But he talked about Charlie Johnson, who had 84 yards rushing that game. He said he's like trying to tackle a rolling manhole cover, you know.
Well, I can see that.
What a great description, because he didn't just like run straight ahead, you know. I mean, he ran straight ahead at first, but when he got in the secondary, he was everywhere, you know. And you know, you can't get your arms around him because he's so big.
Right.
Like you said, if you don't take his ankles out, you know, he's going to go, you know.
Right. But, they call it the Hawk tackling now, the Seahawks tackling. You know, that's how you had to tackle him. There's no way you're going to get, and he was built so low to the ground. You know, how many DBs went to tackle him, and he ran completely over him and folded them backwards.
Yeah, because you couldn't get low enough, really. That was
right.
That was the problem with him. But of course, you know, his success opened up, you know, the outside for you guys, and I'm just looking at this Tomcat record book, which I hope you have one. If you don't, let me know, and we'll get you set up with one. The next 3 games you had 144, 91, and 142, and you know, it was starting to come together. Although you lost against Greenup 18-15, And I know you guys look back at that game and think, man, we should have beat them. You know, it should have been an undefeated season. But you talked earlier about how that was a game that maybe a turning point game for you guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I remember us in the locker room when we got back, and we're just sitting around there. And, locker rooms nowadays, I actually walked by my son's locker room in high school level last Friday. There's people, dancing, playing music that's loud, not in our locker room. You didn't talk. And actually, if you talked normal, it was too loud. You knew you didn't need to whisper. Everybody's getting their game face on and knowing what they have to do. But after that game, we went to the locker room and and I was sitting there and, of course I'm a junior. Everybody else, on that team they were almost all seniors.
Yeah.
I was one of the lucky ones to get to play with them, but they're and I look over and I'm listening to them talk and they're talking like, this ain't going to happen again. This is our year. This will never happen again. We overlooked them. We think we're better than we are, and we need to buckle down. From then on out, it was serious business.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that Greena team, they had ended up winning 9 or 10 games that year. It was a good football team, obviously, or they couldn't have even hung with you guys. But I think you all fumbled it 2 or 3 times, and I remember a fumble late in the game when you could have taken the lead. Just things like that happened, and it does happen sometimes. But I tell you how you think about a turning point. Then the next week you have to go to Ironton.
Right.
Where Ashland hadn't won in seemed like a million years. And of course they're good. They're always good. They just are. You say what you want, but they're good.
And we had to go to the Tank Stadium, right?
Yes, yeah, it was over there.
Yeah,
it was over there, and you're coming off a loss to a team that you were better than, but still, it was a loss, And man, that game was wow. You guys had all 3 of you rushed for over 100 yards, which I doubt that's ever happened to Ironton. Maybe again.
You're right.
I can't imagine really. And you still barely won 15-10.
Right.
Vic said he remembered a few well-timed flags in that game, but I don't know about that. But I can't remember that. But possibly, I'm not going to say he was wrong. You had 142 in that game. Do you recall that game? I'm sure you do, because that was a big win that year.
Yeah, I recall that. To me, when we were going through the plays, knowing what our bread and butter is, the 4 to 6 to 7 plays, those are, when he calls them, you're like, yeah, when's he going to call our good plays? You can't wait till that play gets called. And to that game that night, to me and Juan, we kind of talked a little bit in the huddle, while David was getting a cue up, and we were like, man, I said, this play, Veer's open, why are these so open now? why is he calling them? And then he started calling more and more and more, and the whole night we were talking about, yeah, this play's open, and we could run this all night. I was like, yeah, I wish he'd just call it in a row till they stop us. Yeah. But it was weird because it was like whatever they did to their defense worked to our blocking scheme better, and it just opened them holes up that we loved running all the time, and I think that helped tremendously.
Yeah. You think you rushed for at least 350 in that game. You'd think you would have scored more than 15, but and there may have been a few setbacks, flag setbacks there. I don't know. But anyway, still a great win, and I think that was the game that everybody was like, "Wow, this team, they're pretty good." They're
right.
They're going to win some games, and you start rattling off some games, and I tell you another game, and I remember this game very well, being a really tough game. Really, the rest of the way, up to the playoffs, this was your toughest game, and that was against Portsmouth, and that was here. That was at Putnam. And Portsmouth was really good too. I had an E-step at quarterback. They always seemed like they did. And
right,
you all won 26-18. Tough game. That was certainly your next toughest challenge, I think, You know, the district wasn't much really. I mean, you all were just so much better than the rest of those teams. You know, it really wasn't even close.
Yeah, it's nice to look at. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just said, I think you all had established your identity by then of who you were.
Yeah, and I don't recall, stats obviously as best as you do, but it'd be nice to know, how many of them games did we win tight like that, and how many times did we fumble the ball? How many times did we have miscues, flags that didn't go our way? That was, nowadays, coaches harp on you can't win by, turnovers and penalties, and I was like, well, in 1990 we probably could have.
pretty much did, yeah. I tell you another phase of this team that people don't ever talk about was, the defense was pretty good. And you all had a string of 3 straight shutouts that year, which that has not been equaled until this year when they had three consecutive shutouts. So it's been 30 years since they had 3 consecutive shutouts. You all beat Henry Clay, Montgomery, and Round in shutout fashion 3 of your last 4 games of the regular season. Juan was getting going big, and you two really just looking at this. I got just the kind of the leaders, of those games, and both you guys were kind of running wild at that point. And like I said, I credit a lot of that to Brown. I think he doesn't get the credit he probably deserves because
exactly.
I'm telling you, I can remember him rushing 25 yards down the field, and then he'd pitch to you guys, and you'd go another 10, say. Well, guess what?
Right.
You got all 35 of those yards,
Right, that's correct.
Even though he ran 25 of them,
We didn't tell David that, but that's why we stuck close with him.
Yeah, let him do the work, and you got the credit. So, but of course, the Clay County game, I forgot what a close game that was, and it's actually Dickie Martin's call of that is still online. You can go back and listen to it, and you all were behind a lot of that game, and came back and won. And,
that was a tough game.
Belfry, same thing. But, in Belfry, you ended up with 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Juan had 141 and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, you guys, buried them in the second half. It wasn't even close. The final score was close, 35-20, but really it was pretty dominating game, to beat them.
Right. Well, as Dickie says, they pissed us off.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's about right. Yeah. And that's about right. Of course, like I say, the Bell County game, certainly won Ashland fans around here. A lot of people saw that game. That was one of the biggest crowds I can ever remember being, at Putnam Stadium. I mean, that place was packed. And a cold night, but just a good, November. I guess it was the day after Thanksgiving, wasn't it? Do you remember? I think it was.
No, I don't remember.
I think it was.
I know that I have it's funny that you said the voice of Dickie Martin because I have every game, on VHS, but plus I have every radio announcement on tape. One of my dad's best friend. He recorded every game on the radio.
Oh my goodness! What a treasure to have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you ever go back and listen to it?
I do, yeah. And sometimes I've listened to the game instead of watching it, because that's another Ashland, fan based, and when your announcers, you cut him, he don't bleed red, it's maroon.
Oh, yeah.
I actually talked to him Friday. I talked to Dickie. I let him know that playoff weekend, good luck, and he was wishing my lucks, and he told me to get my kids. Well, in other words, he told me to get my kids back into Ashland. They need to be in a Tomcat uniform and in the Dickie voice.
I can hear it. Yeah, I can hear it for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. So anyway, you guys win the semifinal game though, and I know there was a lot of celebrating, on the field, and but you got one more game to, before really the real celebration, I guess. And Lincoln County, they were good. Obviously, they won the West Side and came out of that. and Juan had been he got hurt in that Bell County game. And it actually was a pretty bad knee injury that, they were able to, I guess fix him up enough that he could play. I know he couldn't really move laterally very well, or they didn't think he could, I think, and obviously after that game was over, he ends up having surgery. He misses his senior baseball season, and of course still gets drafted by the White Sox.
Right. Self-definition right there.
Yeah, and I can remember he talking to him. It's been a couple 3 years ago, and him talking about I was playing that game. There was no way. I was not going to play them that game. I wasn't going to have surgery at that point, even though I think they told him, your knee's going to need surgery. It's going to.
Right.
That's a bad injury. And Lincoln, of course, didn't know he had a knee injury or whatever, and their idea was to take him away, I think, as much as possible, from Ashland, and mostly, Vic ran him, just straight dive plays really for the most part. He didn't really have him,
dives and veers all night.
Yeah, but he didn't have him on the outside where he was going to have to make cuts.
No.
And that kind of thing. But I think them having to focus on him really opened the door for you and Charlie in that game. Because you can't take away everything. I mean, if you're a defense,
right.
you from coaching, okay, we're going to take this away and let's see how they react. You seem to like the carpet there, though.
Love the AstroTurf.
You got loose on some 3 long touchdown runs, and you rushed for 175 yards, and Charlie had 126 and 2 touchdowns. But it was a typical game for you guys, really. Just unstoppable on the ground. Unstoppable running game. I mean, Lincoln really, they were really never in the game. Not really.
No.
Do you remember Juan's injury and what all happened there?
No, because we really didn't know. We just thought it was just a game injury, not a hurt thing, and we didn't know really it was an injury. And we didn't think nothing about it, and Stuart and all them, Rhett and Charlie, we were all talking about it. But it was, we were into the game when we were talking about it. We didn't even talk about it before the game. And
I've watched the video of that game several times, and he of course he played defense too, and he's a great defensive end. And he was all over the field that game.
Yep.
He was making cuts, he was making plays. I bet he had 10, 12, 15 tackles in that game.
Right.
It wasn't like it. You could really tell, I guess, right? That he was hurt.
Yeah, because that's why we didn't have a clue, because he just was playing normal, Yeah. Of course, when you play a team that's, when you're so big like Juan, when you're playing a team that only comes to your belt line, yeah, you're going to get hit in your legs a lot. They couldn't get as high as him, and he couldn't get down that low to run over him.
No, he was kind of a straight up runner anyway, really, wasn't he?
Yes.
Just more out of style. That he could move too. He could run fast.
I always told him, I said, well, if you were littler, you'd be a little scared to have them big boys hit you. You'd be faster, and he kind of chuckled.
So that year, he ends up 1,682 yards, 21 touchdowns. You had 1,483, 19 touchdowns. Charlie had 1,270 and 9 touchdowns. Just an incredible back.
And now look at the, think back about that year, because you wouldn't see it happen nowadays. But Juan and I forget what we were together. We came in and watched the game, and me and Jimmy Bentine, and we all hung out at Bentine's house, his brother's house afterwards. And think about how many games that year we were sitting the bench in the third quarter.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
today's down age. You play 4 quarters, and then we really only played 2 to maybe 2.5.
I'd say you'd had another 500 yards each, for sure, if not more.
Yeah.
And, interesting. I just actually noticed this. Charlie ran more than anybody on that.
Yes.
In that
yes.
season.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. I didn't realize that.
And his yards he earned. If you're going to the outside, you're 1-on-1, maybe 2-on-1, but Charlie was 7-on-1.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's your junior year though. So you got to say goodbye to all those guys and all those linemen and all that. And you come in the next season and Raceland, stuns you guys in the first game. Defending state champs, and oh my! But Raceland was really good that year. They were really good. But still a stunning loss, really. And especially the Ashland people. That was the first time Raceland won't beat Ashland in maybe ever. I don't know.
Right.
One of the and it kind of Bill Tom actually played Ashland tough the rest of the times after that. But that game, it was like, oh no, what has happened here? You still had 100 yards rushing. Obviously, it was not the wishbone anymore. It was back to the divide backs, and this was actually going to be a team that could maybe throw a little bit too, because Chad was a pretty good quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I think that game, I think it just, that year took us a little while for everybody to click, because you got to look how many new guys there was. You got, that's why when I coached, I was a firm believer of, okay, let's get everybody reps at the position we know they're going to play next year, and then, let's make them used to next year. Let's not play them and at different positions, but let's make sure they get some time. But I think it just took us a while to click, for timing and everything.
Right. Mark Washington was your backfield mate. He's a great Tomcat. I mean, he had a great season that year, and I think the next year even better. He ended up, really good seasons, and you had a great season too. You ended up with 1437 and 17 touchdowns. You get into the playoffs that year, and you beat Dixie Heights in the first game easily. Covington Holmes, I'm thinking they were ahead 24-7 at the half on you all, and it looked like that was it. That was a game at Putnam too, and you guys came back the second half, outscored them 21-0.
21-0.
Yeah, to win 28-24, and you had 107. You had 170 in that game, 2 touchdowns. You remember the halftime speech there that night?
No, I don't. Was that the year they had the Mr. Football candidate?
I see. That'd have been Everett. Yeah, that was the year, and you all beat them 56-7. Yeah, Scott Russell, a guy named Scott Russell.
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, you all played them that season. One loss, another loss of significance. Of course, Ironton won 32-6. And Russell beat you 28-27. I know that was probably a heartbreaker for sure.
Yes, it was.
But you beat Holmes in that big comeback, and you go into the region championship game, and it's at Covington Catholic. I'll never forget it because it was a Saturday afternoon. And if you remember, it was the weirdest day. It was like so warm when the game started. I mean, it was like 70 degrees, and something blew in there, and it got so cold. I mean, I remember it because that field's kind of up on a hill anyway, and it ended up freezing. But that, I mean, and I know you remember this game. You guys were up like 18-7, and you literally were unstoppable in that game. I mean, they hadn't figured it out. Whatever you all were running. Because it seemed like
I remember this game more than any game. I remember this game the best.
So what was it? The same play, pretty much.
Yeah, it was. The only thing that I told Mark, we got back in the huddle, and I don't know why David Daniels was in, and I think it was Mark Washington was in there as well. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're just what's up with you today? You know, and I said, boys, I don't know. I feel like this is it. You know, forget state. Let's do it right now. Yeah. And then when we talked about that, every time, and I don't even know if I've told anybody other than my mom and dad, but every time I got hit, it was in the same shoulder, same spot. I'd land on the ground and it hit every time I had something going on with my shoulder. Really? And my dad said I had shoulder injuries quite a bit, and I don't remember having shoulder problems. You know, he didn't, not injuries, but just issues. But it just, for some reason, every time I got hit in that game, my shoulder it was going all the way down to my legs every time. But I thought we were going to knock their lights out and just walk away with it.
Well, like I said, you were ahead. I remember you were ahead. You guys were up 18-7.
18-7.
And did not. I mean, they couldn't stop you. I mean, you were getting 10, 15 yards. You know, it was like, what is going on? You know, this is crazy. You know, because they were pretty good and pretty highly thought of. And then you had to come out. You got the shoulder. You got hit again, probably, and to the point where, you know, you had to come out. Did they cart you off, or did they? I remember you were.
Yeah, they carted me off that one. Yeah, that was the one I got carted off on. That was the one where I kept looking for, you know, our people, and nobody was. You know, our people wasn't there. It was their doctor. You know, because I think it happened on their sidelines.
It did. Yeah.
And, you know, by the time Doc and them got over there, they already had me taped and strapped to the board and everything.
So I'd always heard it was more a stinger. You know, it was something that you would have gotten over and you could have played. You could have, you know, but by the time they took you to the hospital for X-rays and all that, of course, by the time you got back, I think in the fourth quarter, there's 3 minutes left, or, you know, a game was over, really. You know, at that point.
Right.
I
think when I got back, they were in the locker room.
Okay, it was even.
If I remember, yeah, because they, you know, and I didn't even see the score of the game. I just went in there and everybody's upset and crying. I look over at David Daniels, and me and him were pretty good friends, and you know, he's just hysterical, you know, and you know, then I hear about the turnovers in the end zone and the fumbles, and when that guy came over there, it was before I knew it. Of course, I couldn't, and I guess they. You know, now being a coach, you kind of look at injuries different. That, you know, when they know I couldn't even, my dad was there. I think my dad came down. It was my dad and my mom. They were messing with my legs. Well, I didn't even know they were touching them. You know, I couldn't feel nothing of that. And I guess that's why, you know, they always say if your legs are straight out and your feet are pointed one way, it's not good. And I couldn't. I guess that's what they saw. And before I knew it, I was in the hospital.
So what did it end up being? Was it anything?
They said it was a stinger, but who knows? I mean, my collarbone was already broke. I broke it in high school or middle school. Last year, middle school or high school, because I always wore that web underneath of it. So, you know, they just said, you know, it's a bad stinger or whatever.
So you couldn't have played anymore?
I don't think so, because it was I don't think so, no.
Yeah. Well, just to let you know, this is kind of interesting. You had 87 yards rushing, and I think it was like, wasn't it the second quarter that you went out early in the second quarter?
Yes.
And you already had 87 yards rushing in that game. and Mark Washington ended up with 91. So, you know, they were able to move the ball a little bit, but they only scored one more touchdown after the injury. And I think the injury really, you know, when your team leader, your senior leader goes down, especially, you know, not just goes out, goes down, and it's traumatic, you know.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And I think that's what happened to you. Not that, you know, they may have won anyway. They may have ended up being the better team, whatever. You know, the final was like 41-24. And then Bell County beat them the next week in Pineville, you know, to go, and Bell County ends up winning the state championship that year in 91. And not surprising because it was a junior dominated team that played in 90. So so it wouldn't be surprising that they won. But anyway, I know you know that's a sour way to end a great career, but you know when you look back on your career, you have to be like, wow. I mean, to be part of three pretty good football teams right there, and one great team that people still talk about, and you know it's the last team to win a state championship too. You know.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I didn't know about my sophomore year, but I'll tell you a little story about Coach Marsh and me. I remember, I think it was Billy Keaton. They had a couple of injuries, and I could have the names wrong, but I think, you know, Billy Keaton, he was a running back. I think he went down for a little bit. So I had to pull him out, and I think I'm right, and on the names. And I remember I had to go in, and I'm like, oh, my God, I got to go in this game? Are you kidding me? You know, I'm just a sophomore.
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah. And, of course, Vic grabs me before I go out, and he's like, look, superstar season is over. You're in high school now. I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, so I go out there. And I remember the first play he calls, you know, I run my play, and I actually run around the outside, and, you know, I score. And then I come back out off the field, you know, and, of course, he's ripping me because I ran the wrong play. And then, you know, they turn over on downs. I have to go back out there. You know, they wasn't ready. And I run another play, and I score again, and it was the wrong play. And, boy, he was not happy when I come on that sidelines.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, I really got, you know, everybody was hollering my name, but Coach Marsh wasn't hollering my name for good reasons.
That is funny. Yeah. Billy Keaton he had a really good season that year. He had 922 yards rushing. And,
yeah.
And of course, in one ended up with 1179. But, yeah, you carried it 36 times your sophomore year. So maybe more than you thought. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
36 for 170. So pretty good, you know, pretty good. Not a bad sophomore season, especially on a really good team. But obviously, you know, those next 2 years were more fun and better for you. You ended up signing with Marshall, right? And going to play up there, and you were injured. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I think it was the 8th game. It was I don't know if it was either the 7th or 8th game. Yeah, I hurt my knee. And actually to date, you know, I've had 6 on it now. And I've already had it replaced. Yeah, I had to have it replaced. I think I'm on my 4th year now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That wear and tear, you had some wear and tear on it for sure.
Yeah.
Running up and down Putnam Stadium.
Yeah.
You got a couple. You say you got a couple boys playing now, or have played, or?
I do. Yeah. One's he's a sophomore in Spencer County High School, and then my oldest, his name's Wade, and he's number 14. I didn't tell him to get it, but he did. And he actually got it back this year because when he was a freshman, he had to get 4, and then one of his good friends had 14, and his number 7 came open. He was like, "Hey, Hutt, here, you can have this one. I saved it for you," you know. And cool. And then my oldest son, he plays at Campbellsville University.
Okay.
He's a running back / linebacker. If he gets any bigger, I think they might do some movement with him. But and he of course he wears number 30, and he's a sophomore, which that's my college number.
Okay, so, well that's very cool. So do they know how good you were in high school? I mean, have people told them?
Yes, they've told them. They watch the films, and you know, my wife sometimes she gets on me about, you know, all of us go out to eat, you know, and Dad and I and my sister and John and Mom, we all talk about football, and Kelly's just sitting over going, you know, twiddling her thumbs because we'll know somebody somewhere.
Can we talk about something else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool though. That's good. So, your sons, are they fast? Are they like you as far as that goes, or how would you describe?
Yeah, they're well, now Trevor's fast, but you know, of course he's put on about 35 pounds since his freshman college year. You know, he's just barely under 6'1". You know, he's 210 pounds right now, 212 I think he corrected me. He said he was 212.
Okay.
You know, and he's a running back. He I think they're going to, third downs and first downs he's going to be in. He's a brute. He's way bigger. He looks way bigger than I did when I played in college.
You probably weren't 180.
Well, my junior year I think I wrestled at I had to go up, so I had to go up to 171, and then I think I might have hit 198. Before Marshall season started. I might have been, because they put a lot of weight on me that summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't 6'1" by a far chance.
No, right. Well, that's
so he don't have to run around you. He's good enough where he can run over you. And now my littlest, however, he's faster than me.
Well, I mean, you mean fast, even as high school, he was. Yeah,
right now I think so, because right now, when he was in 8th grade, he loves track. That's his bread and butter is track. He runs the hurdles just like I did. He runs the sprints, and he's ran an 11.98. That's his in his 8th grade year. And I ran an 11.1 consistently in high school.
Right.
And he's already at 11.9, so he's even creeping up on my hurdle times.
That's good. Well, that's interesting for sure. I just say I can't believe where time goes.
30 years is crazy.
30 years ago, and still have some records from that, and still have, obviously one of the greatest seasons Ashland's ever had, and the rest assured people still talk about it. They still talk about the 90 team. You may remember this because I know you guys came back for I think it was 25th reunion, because it was also the Jaws 40th reunion.
I do, yeah. That's when Juan and I went to Jimmy's, yeah.
Okay, and I played a simulated game. I didn't play it. I had a guy play it for me who set things up based on statistics, and
right.
I played out the game, and I played it out in the paper like a quarter at a time. Like a day. Here's the first quarter. The next day you had to come back the next day to see the next quarter. I mean, it ended up being like 31-29. You guys won. Had a goal line stand to win it at the end of the game, and it's just how it played out. I mean,
yeah.
But it spit out the stats and it spit out everything. Man, those Jaws guys, they still won't forgive me for that. They're like that could have never happened, and I'm like, it's a game, it's based on the stats and stuff.
Right.
Neither team could stop the other one based on the stats. When you think about it, both teams had great statistics, really. But it's
me and Juan were chuckling with the 75 team. Juan was, he was poking at them. They were poking right back, so it was pretty funny.
Yeah. But it was interesting for sure. And of course I did stories comparing the teams and talking to, like Coach Conley and Coach Marsh and, people who saw both teams. And Coach Conley was on the radio a lot with Dickie that year, in 1990. And, he loved that team because, of course, he loved the Wishbone anyway. So he says, Juan's one of the greatest football players that Ashland's ever had,
right.
And it's kind of hard to argue that too. I mean, he was
right.
great for sure. He really was. But anyway, like I say, I'm sure this time of year you get a little nostalgic maybe, but maybe this year a little more. 30 years, 30 years ago, it was, one of the best times of your life probably.
Yeah, because Wade played in his first, opening district game Friday, and then I was like, man, where was I playing? where were we at, you know, in 90 and 91, you know, thinking about everything. So you started reaching back in your memory bank.
Yeah.
And they won, thank goodness.
Okay, so they play again this week then, huh?
Yeah, they play John Hardin, which they're always good.
Oh, yeah.
They're always
That'll be a tough one, won't it?
Yeah, they've for some reason we fumble every time we play John Hardin. Not fumble, but we don't get quite across the finish line like we should.
Yeah.
But they had 18 yards rushed on them all year in all the games they've played this year. And then we put up like 194 yards on them on the ground.
Wow.
So we played more Friday, so we beat them 48-6 or something like that.
So how bad did John Hardin beat them during the season?
I think it was 34-16, something like that. 38-16, something like that.
Yeah. It
was around that, but which I'm glad. If you want to lose to them during the season, not during playoffs.
Yeah. And maybe they get the big head a little bit and think they got it
right,
whatever. So, yeah. Well,
but I'm sure.
Go ahead.
I said I'm sure after because we played more, which they've been off since October 15th because of COVID and everything else, and we played October 30th. And,
wow.
John Hardin, I don't know if they've been off since October 15th as well. I'm not for sure, but, that we've scored that many points on more again. They're like, well, they haven't given up,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
so,
because, Spencer County always hadn't had its football team. When I moved here, They had no football.
Wow. And you coached, so you coached a little bit of Little League and
Yeah, I coached, around 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Little League, a much better player than I was a coacher, I can tell you that. And then, and then I've coached track. I think I've coached track for like 6 to 7 years. I really like coaching track.
Yeah.
But last year I hung everything up.
Oh, is that right? Now what are you doing? What's your business? You say you have a sporting goods store or something?
Well, no, we do embroidery and VersaCam and screen printing and, just everything we can. And we do a lot of school work. It's up top, awards and apparel. And we do trophies. And it was funny because when Dirk was, when he was, a little sick, I came home just to spend some time with him. I said, hey, I'm going to come pick you up today. Are you busy? And he was like, no. He said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, we'll just go for a ride. And it was funny because my wife had meetings, so I couldn't take her car because basically I'd take hers or, another one we had. But I just sold my white truck, and I had a company car, and I worked for Payne Electric as well, Payne. And I picked him up, in that Payne truck, and he just was excited. So, did I open a company? I said, did you open a company with my name on it? I said, no, but I thought you'd get a kick out of this.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So,
yeah,
that's great. That's cool that you're doing that. Yeah, and I hope it's successful. So you live in Spencer County?
Yes, I live in Taylorsville. Yeah, Spencer County, Taylorsville City. Yes.
Okay.
I live kind of by the lake, Taylorsville Lake.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know, and I'll just tell you this: your mom worked at Dr. Morton's for years there, and she was always so nice. I'm telling you, one of the nicest ladies ever around. And
I appreciate it.
Anytime I had an issue, or not an issue, but anything I needed, like with them. She, when she answered the phone, I was like, "Oh, great, Joyce," because I knew she was going to take care of me, and she was
right.
always just such a sweet person. And I'm sorry
I appreciate that.
I really am.
Yeah, because we have a big golf scramble every year. It's actually a tournament. It's really not a scramble, and and it's called the Double R Cup, Rhett and Ryan, and we used to donate money to a single mom raising their kids through high school.
Oh,
And
wow.
we've kept doing it. I mean, I forget how many years we've been doing it, but we do it every year. It's like a 5-day ordeal. You know, it's a big tournament thing. We have a good time. And we were standing on the tee box, and we were talking about Charmaine, and, you know, after my mom passed, like, well, said, football's going to start soon. Said, you think the Tomcats up there got signs everywhere in heaven, having them up, people walking down the streets?
I'd say
it was
yeah.
kind of funny. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll Facebook message with your sister occasionally too, and you know I like Cheryl.
Yeah.
You all have, and your dad. You all have a great family. But
appreciate
anyway,
that.
I appreciate you spending some time with us. Sorry, it's gone a little over an hour. I usually don't, but
that's okay.
That was all good stuff, and like I say, it's a lot. You know, when I think back on it too, I'm like, God, I turned 63 this year, and I'm like, man, I was just 33 years old. You know, when that 90 season. You know, where has time gone for sure?
Isn't that crazy?
Anyway, oh, it is. I've been doing some of these podcasts, and it, you know, it just hits me a lot of times. You know, like wow.
Yeah.
And the things I've seen, you know, over the years, and this was the 90 season was really a special one to cover too. You know, as a sports writer, you know, because we didn't. You know, you think about our area, even winning state championships. There's not many, you know, through the years.
Right.
I mean, they're really.
Yeah, but what? And Friday nights, how different is it going to be when Dickie's not, when his voice isn't there? That's what's going to be different.
That's going to be
it was
crazy.
already different without Dirk, but man,
it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. He and I did I played a simulation game between Coles and Putnam All Stars. You know, from the time that, you know, it was through like 79 when, you know, Coles and Putnam played each other. You know, so I took guys that at least made any kind of All-State, honorable mention even. You know, that's how the rosters were formed or whatever. And I wrote the script out. We played the game and wrote the script out, and then he and I did the game. You know, broadcast the game. You know, the simulated game. And it's on some of these podcasts. You have to go back and listen to it. It's pretty cool.
I will. I have to go back and listen to that.
But just to hear the names of some of these great players, you know, was really something. And it was a lot of fun. But you're right. I mean, his voice is just synonymous with, you know, Ashland sports, and you know, it'll be different. You know, when that happens, hopefully we have a lot more years with him. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
So anyway, well, Chris, I'll let you go here, but thanks again for being on here with us, and
thanks for inviting me.
All right, and I hope your boys continue to have great success and your new business too.
I appreciate it. When I get home, I'll give you a shout.
Okay. All right. Good luck. We'll see you.
All right. Thank you.